Welcome to MELfeed.video. We are commencing a live web stream service via youtube.com from Melbourne, Australia. We currently conduct these streams mainly on Wednesday evenings, with other times to be added as more opportunities arise. Please visit our website at MELfeed.video for further information. This web video project presents old and new community TV programs. Please enjoy your stay with MELfeed.video.
Hi and welcome to MELfeed.video transmission 22 for the 11th of July 2018, and we're going to start up with NAT Chat in just a moment, and that will be followed by episode 4 of Inline Plus and No Rolling, and then Harmony and Diversity, Red Lobster, 15 Fabulous Minutes and the CEC Report, and then at 11 o'clock tonight, Transports of Distant Delight. But for now, we're heading into NAT Chat, and we'll see you a bit later on in the night.
Welcome to NAT Chat. My name is Paul Spanos, and today we have with us again the clinical counsellor, Harry Malos.
Thank you, Paul.
Welcome to this hour with us. Today's topic is low self-esteem and how this can be explained. Low self-esteem is quite common in our society. It's not something, it is in every household, I would say, and attacks every age. But how does this work? How can we explain? How can we start this?
Yeah, well, that's a good question to a very prevalent subject in society today, Paul, that we struggle with low self-esteem, with self-worth. We feel bad about ourselves, we feel incapable, and as a result, we hear tragedies and many tragedies, even so recently that we heard the death of Robin Williams, who died because of depression and because he felt so unhappy with himself, and we hear things like that. So it is a very prevalent issue in our society today.
Because we're talking about low self-esteem, doesn't sound very big, but when it leads to depression in such a way, like take your life.
Yes,
it is. It is heavy.
Yeah, and I think, look, one way of explaining it is our early experiences in life.
Okay.
Early childhood experiences. We can look at it that way, and what happens when a child is not nurtured correctly, is not nurtured positively, I should say, when criticism is addressed to them unfairly, when they are accused of not performing, they obviously have low self-esteem build up. And how it works is that in order to be able to actually deal with the criticism, to adapt with the criticism in early age, what we do in order to cope is create a false self, as psychology suggests. And that false self is identified with all the criticisms that are thrown towards a young individual, and we do that in order to cope. Because
that means when I'm a child and I've got that negative criticism, you're lazy, you don't cope, you can't do this and that. That means I create another self within me.
Yes.
With all of that as part of my cognitive behavior, or accept that as such.
As part of a coping behavior.
Coping behavior.
Okay. It's how, I guess, if whether you believe in God or not, it is there for a purpose, and if it wasn't there, the individual would be so overwhelmed and that he would not be able to survive.
That means in this case that coping behavior, I escape into this. It
is a form of an escape, but it's more of coping, because all these things that are dealt towards that individual are too overwhelming. So our brain structure creates another false self of ourselves in order to take all that criticism. So all that criticism is towards that false self that makes me separate towards that. So the problem, that's a good thing as a coping mechanism, but the problem is as we grow older and we keep feeding the false self, we identify ourselves through the false self. And
do we use that false self as an excuse?
Not as an excuse, as a way to cope.
As a way to cope? With what? How can we put an example to cope with what? If somebody has negative reinforcing to me all these ideas about myself, and I have put it into this, how can I use as a coping mechanism this self?
In order to adjust, and in order to actually live your life, you need to assess what has been said to you in order to move on. So we assess it by identifying it with a self that represents all those criticisms. See how it works? But the problem is that
means I have accepted them in some degree.
Yes. It's not only is it accepted, but it becomes so powerful that it represents us. It no longer represents who we truly are, but who we are as a false self.
That means in this case I fall into the trap, believing that criticism as something real in me, but in reality is not the reality for me.
Yeah, which it's not the true person.
It's not the true person.
It's a false person. And you know, there's a difference between who we are and what we are.
Okay, can we talk about this?
Yeah, sure. What we are is when we refer to someone, what a thief he is, what a liar he is. This is caused by their behaviour and their actions. But who we are is something more special than that. Who we are is our true identity that no longer is represented because we've built up this false image of ourselves through the criticism.
That means I might steal things, but who I really am, I believe this is a theft, and even though I do steal, but at the same time, inside me, I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
As my other self.
Yes. My true identity is different to
what I do. Is my belief system?
Yeah. My true identity is that I have a special purpose in life. I am created for a purpose, and I have hope, and I have love, and I have all these things. But the false self, who represents us, is represented by all the criticism that we've received.
That means, can we say that false criticism or negative criticism?
Negative criticism.
Okay. That really steals opportunities for my real purpose in life.
That's right. And it creates a downcast society. It creates a society who don't believe in themselves, but believe that they're incapable of experiencing a good life. They're incapable of performing good traits. They believe that the only traits that they can perform are negative traits because they're represented by this false self-image.
That is very, very interesting to move on from that after the break. Please stay with us. We'll be back after the short break. Welcome back to NAT Chat. With us is Harry Malos, the clinical counselor, and the topic today is how self-esteem affects our lives and causes and results because of the self-esteem being low. Harry, welcome back. Let's talk about the low self-esteem. It means that I am a normal person, and I do things, and people have a certain really good perception about me.
Yeah.
But my perception about me is completely different.
That's a perfect analogy. People surrounded to you, around you, can see your good trait, can see your worth, can see that you perform well at work, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a sportsman. They can see the good things in you.
And they can see the skills that I've got.
Yeah, based on the truth.
Yes.
They can see it.
And what is it that blocks my mind for me to see that?
Because we're not represented by our true trait. We're represented by an image that we created that was in order to cope in early life.
That means, in this case, I focus into that self that we were talking about
That's
before.
right, the false self. If you're, let me give you a simple explanation. If I know that you are an Australian citizen,
Yes.
but you think you are of Asian background, and I said you're Australian, and you say, no, I'm Asian, because that's who represents you.
Okay.
This other false self that you have grown up to accept as yourself in order to cope.
And that means if that false self, it's full of the negative criticism against me when I grew up, I just carry that.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens. And that's the problem. Although it is there for us to cope in early childhood, it becomes so powerful that we identify only in that. And anything else anybody else says that's positive, we don't believe, we don't accept.
That means I might do wonderful things,
Yes.
but to me, I'm still on that false criticism that's been done to me by people who they didn't even know how to be positive with me.
Yeah, those who have labelled you that way, yes.
Okay.
Those
That
who
means
have
labeling is part of the things that we...
Yes. Look, when a child is labelled in a negative way, it just can't. It's overwhelmed. It doesn't know what to do with it.
Does this explain a lot of suicide, low self-esteem amongst the girls and females, being believe that they're not pretty or something, or?
Yes. Well, when it comes to that type of thing, yes, girls are a little bit more. I think it's in terms of the looks and so on.
Yeah.
Yes, but generally low self-esteem occurs to both genders, and not just to male and female. It occurs to both.
Okay.
We just don't see the goodness that we have, the traits that we have. We're incapable of seeing. I treat a lot of my clients because they have low self-esteem of themselves. They don't feel special.
And that trait comes from their childhood as well.
It's generally, it begins there. It begins as a coping mechanism from early childhood
It
experience.
means that brings another problem within the family. Even though I believe that my child does not behave well, I have to be very, very careful how to label that behavior, isn't it?
Well, yes, it's true, and it's an awareness and the truth comes in.
Okay.
Because we're not saying to pretend that you are good because that's your true identity.
Okay.
We are saying look at your facts of what your true identity and focus on that, not on an image that you've created in order to protect yourself.
Okay.
So if you're a child who has been getting good to average marks, but you think that your marks are in a negative way, that you think are no good, well, we dispute that by saying, well, if you're not good, how come you're always passing?
Yes, that's right. Yes. Okay, that means we can. But before we go into the remedies, it's going to be the third section. But I would like to focus. What's the implication of low self-esteem? If we can put sort of a range of things that can happen to me if I sustain this low self-esteem.
Well, we fall into depression.
Okay.
And that's the danger of people who with low self-esteem. They fall into a depressive state that's very difficult to turn around.
It means everything is negative around.
Everything is negative. We're stuck in a hole that we're not worthwhile. Our self-worth is diminished. So what am I doing living? I might as well put an end to this misery and this miserable life that I have.
Now, if I feel negative about myself and I have low self-esteem, how do I see others?
Well, that's a very good point, because usually people with low self-esteem, in order to communicate with other people, because remember, low self-esteem is down low and the other people are above them, they actually become very critical towards others because they can't communicate from this difference. So I would try and bring you down. I would criticize you. If I have low self-esteem, I will look at you in a negative way and be verbally critical with you, so I can bring you down to my level so we can talk.
That's why depressive people and depressive behavior is not very attractive, isn't it?
Well, true. Yes, it's low self-esteem people usually are very critical people,
and that is why it's not easy for them even to make friends and to socialize.
That's
in
correct.
A normal.
It's because they can't associate or they can't relate to them.
Yeah. That means you can see the impact of low self-esteem is really pretty much into the social life, our behavior, and also how the environment is receptive to us or not.
That's correct. Low self-esteem people are usually not very social. They are confined in their own premises. They don't like going out. They don't like socialising, because they think that if they socialise, people will see what they feel about themselves.
I mean, can we relate this on to Robin Williams' case, that it was pretty much everywhere in the media, that himself was in a deep depression, while I would say 7 billion people around the globe adored him.
Yeah. So that's a perfect example of someone with low self-esteem who identifies themselves from a false self perspective.
Okay.
There's so much evidence to suggest that he had so much skill. He brought so much laughter to people. He was worthwhile, and yet he didn't see that.
Let's talk about some remedies or ways of getting away from that low self-esteem.
Yeah.
When we come back after the break. Thanks for being with us.
Transports of Distant Delight is a mixed selection of transportation pictures from here and there and almost everywhere, but not quite. Some quirky, some mundane, some from the past, perhaps reflecting a transit system that has vanished into history, and some from thriving transport entities that continue to endure despite the constant pressures from the all-pervasive motorcar. Enjoy.
Wednesday at 10 p.m. on MELfeed.video.
Tick, 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 fashion.
Tick, 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 fun.
Tick, 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 food.
Tick, 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 festivals.
All make up 15 fabulous minutes.
In a half-hour special.
Presented to you by Jacqueline and Steve.
Every week.
Wednesday at 10 p.m. on MELfeed.video.
Time's up.
Statistics show 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually assaulted before their 18th birthday. Help break the silence on child sexual assault. Go to bravehearts.org.au.
Australia Day means a time for reflection in one way, where we're really lucky to live in such a country, and it's really an opportunity to connect with people who are really close to you and important in your life. I hope and wish for a society that truly respects everybody in every shape and form. On Australia Day, I'll be actually at the tennis, and I'll be sharing that with my friend. Doesn't get much better than that, really.
Get together on Australia Day. Go to australiaday.org.au to find out how.
I want to get the word out to blokes about a little gland called the prostate. It's only the size of a walnut, but it can cause a whole lot of grief. Prostate cancer deaths pretty much equal breast cancer deaths. The problem is, if you wait too long, it may be too late. It took one of my mates. Don't make me angry. Talk to your doctor about your prostate, and if necessary, get it checked. You'd be nuts to leave it to chance.
Go head on into the fast-paced world of roller sports.
Come on, keep up.
So tell us about your skating and your experience.
Inline Plus introduces you to the world of roller sports in all its forms.
We are actually going to catch up with 4 members of the Australian team.
Very pleased to skate because the surface is quite smooth.
So get your skates on.
Inline Plus.
Coming up next on MELfeed.video.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us with Harry Malus, the clinical counsellor, and today's topic is about low self-esteem. Let's talk about, is there any possibility or any pathways for me to step away from this negative way of the low self-esteem?
Yes, there is. There is. It's a process of a counselling process where the individual becomes aware of the way they behave, how they're represented, and giving them certain skills and challenging their irrational thoughts about what they think of themselves that doesn't truly identify who they are.
That means psychology or counseling, I would say, helps me with low self-esteem to identify that behavior in itself that I have chosen.
Yes. You didn't quite choose it. It became necessary for you in order to cope. It wasn't like I choose to be low self-esteem, because I don't think they enjoy it being low self-esteem.
Right. Okay.
It's just that is what happened in order for them to cope.
And somehow it's a trap in life to create that false self, isn't it?
That's right. It is a trap. It's a coping way, but it is a trap because it represents us, and we can't step out of it because we don't believe what everybody else sees. We only believe what we think and feel about ourselves.
Now, how emotionally I can accept that I'm trapped, or the thinking process what is the first mechanism of my thinking to step away from my perception?
Well, firstly, you become aware of it, and then you identify. A counsellor will gently identify the things that you've achieved, will challenge the irrational thoughts of your negativity, will base it on truth, and it's a process where you actually identify all the things that you've achieved, and how did they come to be when you don't think yourself that special or incapable of doing these things. So it's a slow process of identifying positive action and positive traits in the person.
That means you turn on the light to the area that I shut down the light.
Well, that's a simple way of looking, and I think that's what we do. Yes.
Yeah, and so for me to begin to think, I think about myself this way, but this is not only me. I've got some other stuff in there that I don't pay attention somehow. Exactly.
So we say, tell me, what evidence do you have that you think you're such a failure?
Okay, that's a good point. What evidence there?
Yeah. And as the opposite of that is there any evidence to suggest that you've actually have performed well, that you are coping well, that you are contributing well, that you have made a difference in a positive way to your family, to your society, to your loved ones, as a father, as a mother, as a brother, or as a sister.
Okay.
You've contributed, and everybody else agrees with it and thinks so. So we challenge that with foundations of truth.
Can we identify that departure from my false self, negative false self, as a mechanism that can describe as forgiveness of my negative beliefs about me? Or because really forgiveness comes down to the things that I believe I'm in the wrong way, or I do things the wrong way.
Yeah. And I think what you're trying to say is that it's very difficult for people with low self-esteem to forgive themselves.
Exactly that.
Yeah, because it's so true with that false identity that they can't see it any other way.
Yes.
So it's difficult to forgive myself for being the way I am.
Yes.
So I'd rather choose to stay that because it makes me comfortable.
Yes. And also, if it is difficult to forgive, it's difficult to forgive others
much more difficult
for that.
Yeah.
Because you blame everybody else for the position you're into, and you feel comfortable in that position.
Yes. So it's a way that I've got a safety zone here. This is where I feel most comfortable, and I recognise myself as that person.
For the benefit of the viewers, what would be the first steps when I recognise that something is wrong with my perception of myself, and I've got low self-esteem? What would be my first thinking of begin just to find the pathway out of it?
Well, learning to trust people, learning to trust people that are close to you, and people who care about you, learning to trust their opinion and their evaluation rather than yours is a good starting point, where you actually are listening to someone who can evaluate you differently to what you do, and you actually trust their opinion.
But in that case, a little bit of a dispute, I would say, because somebody can talk things about you and you feel upset because really what they say about you is pretty much, they miss the point, and you feel that this person really doesn't know me, so I cannot trust this person. Isn't it a way to say that to find people that you are able to trust them?
Well, yes, it's true, because people you trust, you know, and they've been part of your life, and they've experienced the truth about you. So you cannot trust someone you don't know, because they don't know you.
Especially people who love you, really, it's a good starting point.
Yes,
I suppose.
yes. It's a good trust, and you need to start with trust.
Yes.
And then there are other developmental skills that you can acquire as you go from trust to actually fulfilling and disputing that identity that you've created in order to survive.
Very quickly, the first is recognizing things in me, in that behavior. And the second thing, what is the tool that as a counselor use for me to begin to build?
Yeah, well, we challenge the belief system that suggests that you're no good.
Okay, so I begin to build a new belief system about myself.
That's correct.
Building on the reality that other people see and things that I can do or I'm capable of doing.
And it's good. I'm glad you said reality. As counsellors, we don't give hope on false pretense.
Okay.
It is on reality.
Right.
We write down, tell me some of the things that you've achieved. Tell me some of the things that you've done. And once they've identified with these things, then we say, well, I can see there's a lot of things in there that you don't feel about yourself.
I mean, refocusing on my real purpose in life rather than the false self.
Refocusing on the truth about who you are.
Oh, excellent closing.
Yeah.
Excellent. This is the time we've got for today. Thank you, Harry, for being with us again. We're going to call you again. We have some interesting topics. Thank you for being with us. See you next week, same time.
Live stream from Melbourne each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Inline Plus brought to you by Bayside Blades, Australia's inline skating specialist.
Hey everybody, welcome to Inline Plus. Today's show is all about journeys. We've got a few different types of journeys. We've got the Adelaide roller derby girls journeying over to Victoria on the way to Derby Camp. We journey along the Torrens River with Barrel House Bessie and Smarty Pants. And we have lifetime skater Jo Gilbert takes us on her life journey. And I dare you not to feel good after that story. Enjoy.
City in Adelaide. I'm skating with my good pal from Texas, Nadia Kane, or Smarty Pants to you derby people. Come check it out with us. Let's go. middle of the city here is great because there's all sorts of things you can do, including paddle boats. If we weren't on skates, I'd have one of those yellow paddle boats out right now with Nadie in it, running around the river, but instead we're gonna keep on skating. Let's go. So skating at the Torrens River in Adelaide is a bit tricky because it's kind of a bumpy surface and you've got all sorts of things that have fallen down from the trees you have to watch out for. As long as you're careful, watch out for pedestrians and bicyclists, you'll do all right on the Torrens River. You ready? Let's go. Here on the Torrens River, and it's beautiful. You've got the festival center, you've got the convention center, you've got beautiful water features. It's got great tile paving for these skates. It's easy on the eyes and it's easy on the skates. Come on. Been a great day skating on the Torrens River. We've enjoyed every minute of the beautiful water and the beautiful birds. So we're gonna keep going, maybe head into the city for a while. Ready, Nadia? Yeah, let's go. Thanks, guys.
Since the morning in the evening is when I find myself.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Inline Plus, and right now we're really lucky because we're chatting with Joe Gilbert. Hello Joe.
Hi John, how are you?
Doing very well, thanks very much.
I can see you're okay, so why am I asking you?
Thanks Joe. Now you've been skating for a little while. How long have you been skating for now?
Yeah, about 60 plus years.
Okay, so a fair little while. And no doubt in that time you've seen fashions come and go within skating. Is there any that sort of stand out in your mind?
Well, all the protective gear that they wear these days, there wasn't any of that in the days that I was first skating in about the 1945-ish, around that time.
Tell us about some of the changes to roller skates.
Well, I guess everyone knows that they strapped onto your shoes, or they had little clamps which sort of you wound up with a key and they clamped onto the soles of your shoes, which eventually the shoes fell apart because it wasn't a good thing. And then, you know, you progressed to boots, and now it's only boots. But the skates haven't changed a lot. People say, oh, be careful you don't break some bones. Well, you can fall out your back doorstep and break a bone, and how many children break bones falling out of trees or just tripping on something somewhere, so your chances are about the same really if you're a reasonable skater.
You would have seen and experienced lots of changes in music and the genres. Like, what do you make of all that? Is there any that stick out or some you'd rather forget about?
Yes, well, I think the music influences the way people skate.
Do you feel to see these, you know, younger people skate around, and for the first time, and particularly family?
Oh, it's lovely to see family because, I mean, naturally I took them skating when they started to grow up and there was a rink opened and we down at Mordialloc, and I thought, well, I'll take them skating. You know, I still have my skates. I've still got skate on my nearly original skates. I've had 60 plus years, and now they've grown up and got married and had children, and they're skating, and the youngest is 3. Youngest grandchild is 3, and the oldest grandchild is 21, and he's one that represents Australia overseas in the roller hockey. But my family is 5th generation roller skaters.
Hey Joe, thanks heaps for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure, and it was very interesting to meet you and see you down at the rink that day filming, and it's someone who's interested in skating. It's great.
All good. I hope you're skating around for many more years to come.
Oh, I'm going to make an effort, yes. Yeah. I'm Joe Gilbert, and you're watching Inline Plus.
Keep rolling. Straight after the break, the very talented Jason Sutcliffe takes us on a journey up to the Gold Coast for the Artistic Nationals. You're watching Inline Plus.
We're just out here to have a good time and yeah.
You look like you're having a good time.
Yep.
We are.
Inline Plus brought to you by Bayside Blades, Australia's inline skating specialist.
Each week, MELfeed.video presents the CEC Report. The Citizens Electoral Council of Australia present a weekly program of political and economic analysis with policy solutions which are aimed at saving Australia from economic collapse and also suggest ways in which interested members of the public can assist in their current campaigns. The CEC Report, every Wednesday at 10:30 p.m. on MELfeed.video.
Playing the 80s on Air FM 88.0.
Hi, this is Darren McAlane from Air FM Drive. Join me from 3 to 6 p.m. every afternoon on 88.0 in Penrith, and also you can catch me on tunein.com. That's from 3 to 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Playing the 80s on Air FM 88.0.
Come on, fellas. Let's get down there.
Hang on. Where's Dave?
Oh, hey, fellas. What do you think? Pretty cool, eh?
Real men look out for each other. Don't let your mates drink and drown.
The new website for Inline Plus TV is natsport.tv/Inline Plus.
What? Is on, Scooty? What?
Here we are at the opening of the National Roller Sports Championships on the Gold Coast, and as you can see, everyone around us is having a general skate, and it's going off. Woo! We're having such a ball here tonight. Here's some of the skaters. So, Princess Beck, tell me about your competition. You're looking forward to it?
Yeah, I'm doing figures tomorrow morning and precision on Tuesday night, and I'm really excited.
So tell me, guys, how are you feeling about the competition?
We're really excited. We hope we're going to win, but, you know.
You hope you're going to win? That's not the spirit, is it?
No, we're just out here to have a good time, and yeah.
You look like you're having a good time.
Yep.
We are. So, Paul, you've been away for the sport for about 10 years now. What do you think of the local talent?
Well, mate, from what I've seen and talked to some of the people, the enthusiasm's still there, and I think you've got some pretty good talent coming up.
Any future world champions?
Oh, mate, that's something I couldn't answer, mate.
This about wraps up the fun night tonight, and these guys are all going off doing the Macarena, and I don't know it. Guys, how about teaching it? Whatever. In the background, as you can see, we have the opening of the Australian Roller Sports Championships, and all these athletes are the ones that are competing during the week. Debbie Mastrino has just won Coach of the Year, and here she comes. Debbie, congratulations. What a great job. How do you feel?
Oh, I'm so shocked. Really surprised.
Congratulations, and good luck for next year as well.
Thank you.
We are with one of the most exciting new precision groups, Incantation. How do you feel, guys?
Great.
Well, here's the coach of the team by the looks of it. This is Esther Ambrose. How are you feeling about the competition?
Feeling good, feeling very confident.
So the team's all prepared?
Yeah, we're ready to go. We'll be second to skate, so fingers crossed for us.
How about a big chant from the team?
All right, Aussie, Aussie, Aussie!
Oi, oi, oi!
We are actually going to catch up with 4 members of the Australian team. So you guys are almost legends in the sport already. And what, you're under 18? How are you feeling about the championship?
No, I'm psyched, man. I'm psyched.
That's the spirit. What about you, Jono?
Pretty good so far.
What about the rest of you guys up there? How are you feeling? Ready to rock? Woo!
Sorry. Come to the claw, Nikki. No, don't go to the claw. You'll die. Come to the claw. That's it. She's okay. 11 girls in a 12-seater van, people. Seriously, it's great fun. Yeah, it's an eye opener or an ear opener, whatever you like. It takes a room. Come in. Ow. It's light in here. Yeah, we're in love. 6 beds per room. Inline Plus, this is how you block. No? Trying to wheedle your way through the pack because lots of people come up to you and go biff, so you just then you can slide. Yep, that's it. Just get to that little edge.
If you're the one instigating the block, you have to. Your shoulder must be below the other girl's shoulder. If you instigate the block and come up here, you're going to either hit the girl in the head, and that's her mate, it's our, or be above.
Good one. And it gets you that little bit boom off hard. Yeah, it is very steady technique. You get the whole boom. Yeah, not using your arm at all, just boom back with your shoulder. Yeah, good one.
Some of y'all are fresh meat, like right off the kangaroo fresh meat. and so you have to know your own limits and your own expectations for yourself. So I'm going to assume that you're going to all gather these expectations for yourself for this camp, right? And if you meet those or even go past them, that works really well for me. Okay, so we're all adults here, and I'm going to assume that you're going to be working your hardest. I want you to focus on your body weight. Are you being top heavy? Are you skating like this? Are you being back heavy? Is your butt out? Are your knees bent? What's going on?
Hey guys, well, that was episode 4, and it just goes to show that skating is for everybody, regardless of age or background. Next week, holistic counsellor Nikki Staley is going to tell us about the mental health benefits of skating. The roller derby girls tell us about their alter ego names and how they actually got them. And we go speed skating, do some drills with the Melbourne Speed Club. It's sure to be fast. See you next week. Thanks for your company. Bye for now.
Inline Plus.
Please. Go okay, I'll do it again.
G'day everyone, welcome to Inline Plus. Well, you know, they say life's not about the journey, it's about the destination. No, they don't. They say it's about the journey, not the destination.
Try again.
So there you have it, Joe Gilbert, skating legend. Joe, thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure.
And I hope you're skating around for heaps longer years to come.
Well, I'm going to do it even if it's just to annoy my children.
Inline Plus, brought to you by Bayside Blades, Australia's inline skating specialist.
Behind every great athlete, there is a great support network. Australian Athletes with a Disability and Wheelchair Sports Australia help athletes realise their full potential.
Gonna go from 3. Yes!
No matter their ability, we're there to support them. Sporting opportunities for all abilities. For more information, visit sports.org.au.
This bank is helping to save lives. Every year, 500,000 Victorians have no idea where their next meal is coming from. Food Bank Victoria works with farmers, supermarkets and manufacturers to make sure their surplus stock ends up here to be distributed to those in need. But all of this is not enough. Right now, this bank needs interest, your interest, to support Victorians in need. If you can help, visit foodbankvictoria.org.au.
Every time we buy certified organic, we're making a choice to help our environment and build a healthier community. But it can be hard to know that what we're buying is truly organic. The Australian Certified Organic logo is only given to products after a very rigorous process. So when you see this logo, it means you can trust that there are no genetically modified foods, no animal cruelty, and no harsh synthetic pesticides used. A healthier community is always better for our future. So the next time you shop, look for this logo.
To capture and win.
It's a photo op.
We're going to join the raffle.
Punctured bicycle on a hillside desolate. Will nature make a man of me yet? When in this charming car, this charming man, why pamper life's complexity when the leather runs smooth on the passenger seat? About these things, I would go out tonight, but I haven't got a stitch to wear. This man said it's gruesome that someone so handsome should care. Na, 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 na. This
23 now, almost 24. Yeah, nothing stacks up like rollerblading, it's just in my blood. It's sort of a sport where there's a limited time frame where you can be good at it. And
Inline Plus was brought to you by Bayside Blades, Australia's inline skating specialist.
If you were living on the streets, wouldn't you want more than just your best friend to keep you safe and warm? Donate to Backpack Bed for Homeless and give warm, waterproof protection and dignity tonight. Call 1300 OzHelp.
Now it's time for a quick reminder of programs coming up tonight on MELfeed.video, so please stay with us.
Alleluia. Om Mani Padme Om. Allah
Welcome to Harmony and Diversity. Norm Curry's my name, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Louise Lang, Coordinator, Homeless Support Services for Anglicare Victoria. Louise, Anglicare is a huge organisation.
It is.
Which does some wonderful stuff.
Mm.
But I believe that your specialty is this parish partnership.
Yes, broadly speaking.
Broadly speaking, yes, you don't want to be nailed down.
I've been working for 5 years in the portfolio, yes, so I've got a bit of experience.
You're getting pretty close to a specialist.
Working on
it. Yes. What's your favourite aspect of this partnership? What is it that turns you on with that?
I guess it's an opportunity for the agency to work alongside sort of its source, because the agencies that Anglicare was formed from were all very much straight out of the Anglican Church. So it's a way to reconnect. Often people in churches can complain that an organisation like Anglicare may become too professional and then sometimes become removed from the source and its roots. So this is a real opportunity for parishes to work alongside with the agency.
Mm. Yeah. And is that done with you suggest with enthusiasm and commitment?
Yes, certainly. Particularly when a parish partnership is formed, there's a memorandum of understanding that's signed off in between the agency and the parish. So there's a lot of commitment got to come from both parties in that regard.
And who sets those partnerships up?
I guess it starts with a conversation between a parish and Anglicare Victoria. And then it would happen at a level much higher than I operate at. It would be with the leadership of Anglicare, the executive, with general managers, our CEO, and they would have those conversations with parishes and sort it out from, start that negotiation process.
And this is probably, as you've already indicated, this is above your level of expertise.
Level,
but
yes.
Have you got any idea what the criteria are for a parish?
Not really, because what I've seen of some of the partnerships, each brings its own flavour and its own relationship, and those memorandums of understanding can be quite different from partnership to partnership. So there's no hard and fast rules about it, I don't think. It's for negotiation and discussion.
Well, what I'd like to do is doing a little bit of research. I've printed out this thing on the partnership, and in here there's a list, a very impressive list of activities which the parish partnership fulfills. Like one is adult literacy. How does that
Well, where I used to work at Clayton at the neighbourhood house, Clayton being a fairly multicultural community, some time ago, in fact I think it was before the partnership with Anglicare was made, they decided that it was worthwhile having English classes for new migrants and new Australians, and I believe that's happened in a number of other places. There's a place at Broadmeadows that Anglicare runs, which isn't part of the portfolio, but again, that's a women's house, and there's a lot of people from overseas there that they work quite closely with, and helping them understand and speak English and read English is a very valuable tool.
Absolutely, it would be. So, if I was to say that the community kitchen food bank, what would...
Community kitchens are something that's come out of Canada, and it's about getting people together. It meets needs on a whole lot of levels. It's about getting people together, preparing food together, then they sit down and eat it together. So it's not just like a cooking lesson, but it's getting people socialising sometimes. So often, if I tried to get one started some time ago for men, and often senior men who may have been widowed, didn't know how to prepare a meal, get them together, have a facilitator work with them, show them and work with them in preparing meals, something that they might be able to do at home on their own down the track, but not only having a meal, but then sit down, have that social time together as well. So it's about getting people together, getting people eating well, and becoming, I guess, self-sufficient in ways as well.
Yes, that's very important, because particularly with older men, because as you'd be aware, the suicide rate goes over the top with older men. Something that it just occurred to me as you were describing those two elements is, what's the mutual benefit, first to the parish and secondly to Anglicare Victoria, of these partnerships?
Well, I guess that can vary. In the work I've done, it's helping the parish to do a ministry in the area, and again for the agency, I guess it's reconnecting back with its grassroots.
Yes.
And as parish partnerships and the community development, sometimes it's helping people in their communities, seeing and understanding some of their local needs, and as an organisation we help facilitate how some of those needs can be met.
I had a look at the board and executive of Anglicare Victoria. There's only one nominated, well, the one I looked at, only one nominated religious there. I think he's a bishop or something on the one I looked at. Is that a fair? Are there other religious on that on the board and executive?
The executive would be the general managers, and that depends on their role. We've generally had general managers who have often been ordained Anglican clergy.
Yes.
Just recently, our new general manager is an Anglican, but he's worked closely with other churches in his more recent history. The broader board has got a large cross-section of representation from all the Anglican dioceses in Victoria.
Okay.
So there's a number of bishops and clergy and people from various church communities too.
Right. The purpose of that question is because sometimes you hear allusion to the fact that charity organisations like this have become secular and quite distinct, but the people are sourced from Anglican communities.
Yeah, and I know the Archbishop of Melbourne's very involved in the organisation too.
Thanks very much, Louise. We'll go for a break. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Here is some brilliant news for adults who have difficulties with spelling, reading a newspaper or phone bill, or writing letters and emails. It can be easier to improve your reading and writing skills than to keep putting it off. Take the plunge. Call the Reading Writing Hotline, 1300 655 06.
1300 655 06.
It could change your life.
1 in 5 of us are affected.
10% of us will have at least one.
And the numbers double for Indigenous Australians.
Just as quick as a click of your fingers, it can happen to anyone at any time.
What would you do if someone close to you was having a seizure?
Imagine if it was your child.
My brother has it. My sister has it.
I have it.
I have it too.
You're not alone.
You're not different. And you have a bright future ahead of you.
So click for kids.
I'm Amy Lee, and I'm part of it.
Man to man, it's time to stop.
Stop the tragic waste of life and the destruction of families, including your own.
Stop blaming drugs and alcohol and believing that walking away makes you weak.
Stop thinking you're a hero and wasting your life behind bars, wishing you could take that one moment back.
Stop the coward's punch.
Welcome back to Harmony and Diversity. Norm Curry's my name, and we're speaking with Louise Lang. She's from Anglicare Victoria, Coordinator, Homeless Support Services. We've been discussing parish partnerships. I noticed that many of them seem to be focused in the metropolitan area. Is that typical, or is there rural work done?
Anglicare Victoria is a statewide organisation, and relating to the Anglican Church, the state is divided into, I think, 5 dioceses. There's Ballarat, Bendigo, Wangaratta, Gippsland and Melbourne itself. So there's a lot of work in the country diocese as well.
And that's organised through their own. That's Anglicare Victoria, which organises that.
Again,
for
it's
them?
a partnership between the agency and the diocese. So often, you know, a bishop being the head of a diocese is very involved in the negotiation. So again, those bishops are involved in the board of Anglicare, and the parish partnership work takes on a local flavour depending on the local need.
With these partnerships, is there any involvement of religion per se, like meetings opening with prayers or?
There may be some. I haven't been to a lot, so it would possibly depend on what was happening. I'm just thinking the work I've done, not really. Occasionally, though, you know, we may have a service as a part of a worship service as a part of our work, and that's okay, just as long as we talk about that openly so people have an understanding of what may be happening. But we don't do the Christian stuff too much in that sort of sense. We're there about getting a job done, so if it's adult literacy, that's what it's about.
That's what it's about, yep.
Other emergency relief, you don't normally pray with a client unless they may ask for it. That's fine. Again, it comes back to that chaplaincy kind of style of doing things.
Sort of an arm's length, but doing the service.
Yeah, a lot of stuff's done. Certainly people are motivated by their faith, but know that how they approach the person is the Christianity seen in the action rather than the words.
Yes, you once minded of some rather potent quotations about that.
Indeed.
Now, your specialty at the moment is homeless.
Yes.
How does that present itself?
Can I say no 2 days are the same?
Yes.
But our services that we provide is firstly a breakfast program that runs 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So rain, hail or shine, public holiday or whatever, breakfast is happening. And that's we operate out of St Peter's Anglican Church in East Melbourne, and we arrive there at 7 o'clock in the morning, set up. open the doors at 7:30 for the clients to come in. They have an hour and a half to enjoy each other's company, have coffee, cereal, toast, whatever else we've got going at the time, and we finish that at 9, pack up at 9:30.
And I believe that you've been doing that today.
I have.
Well, thank you for still being here.
That's okay, that's okay.
What sort of people come for that service? Is it the same people? Or?
Most of the people we have, we see them often. Some come and go very briefly and we don't know them, where others are more long-term. And those who come, there's a broader definition of homelessness. So primary homelessness is those who are sleeping in the parks, rough sleeping. There's secondary homelessness, which is couch surfing, and it sort of moves into a boarding house, rooming house sort of situation. Emergency housing comes into there, and then there's tertiary homelessness, which is towards the end of moving into transitional housing. And again, it's the rooming, boarding house stuff, which is probably a little more permanent. But because it's not a real permanent home for a person, and a rooming house, is a room. It's not a home.
No.
So we talk about homelessness in a broader sense of the word. And so where we have breakfast, we have a lot of people who are lodging in the nearer part of Fitzroy and around and those sleeping rough in gardens and the city, and they come to us for breakfast.
Mm. It's astounding, isn't it? That there are people who need to do that. But thank goodness there's people helping them.
Yeah, and we have about 50 to 80 people come on a daily basis.
Good. Okay, so you do the breakfast service. What else do you do for these homeless people?
After packing up at breakfast, we head over to a second site, which is based at St Mark's Church in Fitzroy. There's a community centre there that's been going for some time. Recently, in the last 3 years, the service has been focused on the homeless population. We open there at 11:30 and go through till 3. There we have showers, washing machines and dryers. We have a drop-in centre. People have the opportunity to get food parcels, to have lunch, to sit and relax if they need to, have tea or coffee, and we're able to do some other financial assistance to the clients there. Clothing vouchers to the local op shop, vouchers for prescriptions and a few things like that.
And would that be the same population as comes to the breakfast?
Similar.
Yes.
Not everybody goes to both sites, but we have quite a strong crossover between the two.
So on a rough sort of an average, you're probably helping 100 people a day?
Yeah, we probably are. Yeah.
7 days a week?
St Mark's is only Monday to Friday.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
But the breakfast is 7 days a week?
Breakfast keeps on going, yes.
That's amazing. So we've got our drop-in centre. Then what happens?
Oh, I go home. No, we at the drop-in centre we try and help with referral. We've got some good relationships with other agencies like some community health services, and a little with some housing, and just try and refer people on and help them get more help. And we're only limited in what we can do.
Yes.
And a lot of people have health issues. So if we can get people to see them, to help them with what they've got to do, it's getting people moving on and hopefully getting into better situations.
Thank you, Louise. Talking about moving on, we've come to a need for a break.
Okay.
We'll be back in a moment.
My name is Logan. I'm 12 years old and I have Duchenne muscular dystrophy. My muscles are degenerating and I was put into a wheelchair 2 years ago. Soon I won't be able to move at all. The majority of people affected will not live past their 20s, including me. So we need your support to improve our quality of life until a cure is found.
You teach us strangers are dangerous. But someone we know is a much more likely threat. You teach us strangers are dangerous. But who will help when you're not around? Create a world without unnecessary fear. Prepare, don't scare.
Here are the current weather readings for Melbourne, Geelong, Ballarat, Shepparton, Bendigo and Echuca on the MELfeed video weather wall. It also includes tomorrow's forecast and expected minimum temperatures in these areas overnight. This is the MELfeed video weather wall on a different sort of TV. MELfeed Video.
Welcome back to Harmony and Diversity. My name's Norm Curry and we're speaking today to Louise Lang from Anglicare Victoria, and her specialty is parish partnerships. Parish partnerships indeed, and you've described to us a very encouraging homeless service that you provide for upwards of 100 people a day. That's quite amazing. This list of parish partnerships has some interesting components which I'd invite you to comment on as we go through it. Things like community arts and craft.
Yeah, I know at Wangaratta they've done some fairly major projects. Where I used to be at Clayton, we had an art therapy group. And that involved people. It was a HAC, which is a home and community care funding to it, and so that was for some people who might be marginalised in the local community, whether it be through a disability, mental health. We had a lass who had an acquired brain injury. So people a bit on. We had a lady who was in her 90s who loved coming to the class, and being an older person, couldn't always get around. And that art class was operated, everybody was treated as equals by the teacher. She's an absolutely fantastic lady, and people she could bring out the best in them, which was fantastic. So some work was mosaic work, some work was canvas work. She did all sorts of things, used all sorts of mediums, and again it's building self-esteem, it's making people feel included. So those sorts of things are really great.
Yes, and art therapy and music therapy, those two are quite powerful, aren't they?
We in fact actually had the same lady working for a while with some of our clients at our drop-in centre, and they've done some fantastic mosaic stuff. It's just wonderful.
It's extraordinary,
and to
isn't it?
see some fairly tough blokes getting stuck into doing something creative, it was a beautiful thing to see.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Now, you've mentioned, I just noticed, this community contact centre. That's the one that is that the drop-in centre, or is that something different?
Drop-in centre, and I think in the site where I was at Clayton, we had various things happening in the way, because it was a bit like a neighbourhood house. There were the English classes, sewing groups, computer classes, the art group. They had a community lunch. So there's opportunity for people in the community to be involved in all sorts of different ways and do things.
A lot of these, as you mentioned, are centred around community houses. That community house, whose resource is that? Is that part of the Anglican?
Probably again varies. Where I was at Clayton, the house we were in used to be the vicarage, so the parish decided to put the vicarage aside for that particular building aside for the work, and then the vicar had a second property that he lived in off-site. So we were actually on the church property, in the church grounds, able to work with the parish, and just really work alongside with people.
Yes. Yes, it really belies the fact that there's an allusion to the fact that the churches actually are losing influence and are irrelevant. This is actually an indication that they're not losing influence and they're not irrelevant, certainly in this context.
Absolutely, I know Archbishop Philip Freer, who's the head of the big church in Victoria. He's recently encouraged churches to become more relevant to their community, to be involved at community level, to be involved with agencies like Anglicare, like the Brotherhood of St Lawrence, and those sorts of things, so that they don't have the focus of being just church, but about community.
And my finger's pointing at one on this list here, which probably relates to that in a big way, is the emergency relief centres.
Yeah, well, that's a really important role that churches do out in the community, the providing of food and other needs for people in need. It's just... And the working poor are becoming more and more evident. Times aren't easy, and people just need assistance. It's, you know, paying bills, water bills are going up, power bills are going up, there's not enough money for the food. All those sorts of issues.
Well, the Salvation Army, of course, have an enviable reputation for being present at emergencies and floods and fires, etc. Does Anglicare Victoria, through the centre, do that sort of work when they're called on?
Emergency relief in that sense is that just that everyday need that families have to make ends meet, rather than emergency events.
The big
I guess.
Yes. Well, thanks for explaining that. And you already alluded to it, but it's certainly in this current climate, and probably any current climate really, financial counselling. What's that look like? Is that doing people budgets or what?
It's helping people budget. Some emergency relief work is done alongside with the financial counsellors. So if someone comes a little too often in a short period of time, it's suggested that they look into the financial counselling, help them with budgeting. Sometimes people present with huge bills that, you know, maybe a power bill or a gas bill, and they've got no idea how to deal with it, because it's become so big, it's just too hard to deal with. So often they can come to a financial counsellor. The counsellor get in contact with the companies. There are hardship clauses that companies have, but sometimes it's just so big and overwhelming that a financial counsellor can actually help put a stop on that bill and just help the person budget and deal with it and get it done, rather than having the threat of power being cut off or, you know, whatever happening. So financial counsellor are able to really step in and help people with an issue, and then help them work towards problem solving those issues.
Yes, you've mentioned water and power, and power is a big issue. There's a lot of discussion about that at the moment. Have you got any understanding of what sits behind the main thrust for these people becoming in need of this emergency funding?
Well, sometimes it's just, you know, the money they have just doesn't make the distance in a weekly or monthly budget. And people do try. You know, a lot of people might sling off about people who are welfare dependent, and sometimes they're just really struggling to live life. If they've got a low income, it is a battle. It doesn't cover everything, and they just need help. So particularly financial counselling, if they can help them to understand that, that's something they can move on with.
They're the people euphemistically referred to as battlers. And we'll see you next week.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu.
If you choose to text while driving,
you could ruin lives.
Someone else's, your family's, or your own.
Choose not to instead.
The right choice could save someone's life.
Proud supporters of safety in our community.
GMCU and Southern Cross Austereo.
Are you playing renovation roulette? I'm John Jarrett.
Now I know that deadly asbestos lies hidden in 1/3 of Aussie homes.
It can be found in any home built or renovated before 1987. Lurking in walls, under floor covering, behind tiles, in roofing. Asbestos. It was used everywhere. So if you're a renovator or a tradie, you could be risking your life and the lives of others. Remember, go slow. Asbestos, it's a no-go. Visit asbestosawareness.com.au to learn what you need to know.
We've all seen this one time or another. We may even have done it ourselves. But inhaling balloon gas is very dangerous and can be fatal. The helium in balloon gas acts as an asphyxiant, and when you inhale, it displaces the oxygen in your lungs. Balloon gas is safe in balloons and when you release it in a well-ventilated area and in a safe manner. So the next time you see some sucker about to inhale balloon gas, or you think it's going to be a laugh, stop and be gas-wise.
Locals here made the shocking discovery this morning. Police have sealed off the entire beach.
There is a killer. One of the worst killers in Australia. Skin cancer. Every year, skin cancer kills over 1,700 Australians. Don't be a victim. This summer, protect yourself against skin cancer.
Live stream from Melbourne each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Now, this one is a short one about the war against China that we're waging in Iraq. Anyways, this is an actual quote from an actual president. I would still invade Iraq even if Iraq never existed. Makes a great first line. So, I would still invade Iraq if Iraq never existed. And Atlantis is no safer. And the Jurassic period is all mine. Dino fucking saws and all. And the lands Conan roamed, he will roam with a permit issued by yours truly. And I, the God King of the Moon, what lives in a big white house. I am perfectly sane, you know. And speaking of God, tomorrow at dawn we assault the pearly gates. Let's face it, we know better than he do, for we live in the real world, man, where Iraq does exist, but only if we pretend that it does. Which is why I'm invading, because it's not really there if you look away. So look away! Look away!
Excuse me while I sit in a corner and scream. It just seems to me the whole fracking world's forgotten how to dream. Even our good guys are mean. Our poets are just letting off steam. Our artists are chasing the buck. Our musicians are trying to have a good time while earning a dime and spending it on beer and not having a care. And I can't help but stare at the futility of it all. We can't even tear down the wall. It's been done already. And what good did it do, if only for a few? At least when it was there, we had something to fear that didn't shoot at us or blow us up. And protests were meaningful. At least the public took notice. These days, a street full of people is just another 5-second soundbite sandwiched between the grey men we follow like sheep on our TV screens. Just an excuse to provoke the police into beating some poor bastards up to get some good vision for the nightly news. And revolution still only means killing people, in order to kill more people, as an excuse for killing even more people. And the dead still stay dead, and the living die of cancer or AIDS or something even more nasty like apathy or economic collapse. And most people just find some excuse to fry the synapse with some sort of drug or other stimulus like sex or power or money or pain and death, and have run out of breath. So I think I'll just go and sit in a corner and scream.
This is the closest I've come to writing a Melbourne poem so far. It's called Scarlett. It's Thursday night at Scarlett and the jazz quartet is cooking. Ben folds himself lovingly around his big-hipped, beautiful bass and makes her heartbeat throb and thrum. Peter throws his drumsticks down and slaps those skins with his bare palms. His hands a blur, a hard falling rainstorm of raw, thundering rhythm. John's keyboard jangles in cool counterpoint, his plinks and planks of harmony tempering the frenzy overhead. Leon lets loose a jubilant, squealing, squalling, triumphant trumpet solo, the kind of wall-shaking wail that makes you get why Jericho fell, why angels are the trumpet section in God's orchestra, and we all clap and cheer. I glance around the dim and cavernous bar, the kind of cosy, rosily glowing, red-walled room, warm womb of retreat from the freezing streets with which this city seems so richly honeycombed. A fond look round at all my newfound friends, artists, musos, poets, all lolling in the leather lounges ranged around the walls, and I think that this is exactly what I came to Melbourne for.
Okay, my friend rings me up. Maybe the 70s had a particularly high suicide rate as a result of the Vietnam War. The electric guitar peaked as the 60s died. My friend rings me up. He's got a good children's song and rhyming poetry about his ex, a few cliches, but a light foot on the accelerator of rhythm. He breaks up reading them on the phone. Sometimes friends are inconvenient. I thought I was going to watch TV tonight and drink less, but I can't help catching the sadness in my friend's voice. I would belong to the generation who wasn't going to die old. Stupid, really. The electric guitar should be taken out and hanged like Saddam Hussein, but who can believe in public hanging? In the ancient halls of the barons, even the commonest person could get up and sing, killing me softly with his song. I'm still a 60s sort of person. I hang up the phone. Unremembered dreams will have to look after themselves, putting the cart of success before the horse of work. All the lonely people, where do they all come from?
This one's called Broken Lungs and Broken Bones Are the Things That You've Sold Me. We have broken fingers from strumming heartstrings coated in concrete. The powder explodes into the air with each pained note, and our lungs heave with our burden, our self-inflicted burden. You keep asking the same question, but you've never liked the answer. You look for beauty in danger and romance in tension, and you never see the cliche inherent in these things. It's like a lazy brown dog, but you and I are the lazier fox, and it catches us in its pitiful hunt again and again and again. I want you to stop crying and accept that we are done, because the sooner you move on, the sooner my journey can begin. We never got very far carrying each other, you know, just one false start after another. We were never beautiful, we were just convenient, and now we're not even that. I'm covered in stress blisters thinking of you. Goodbye, my lover. Goodbye, my friend. It's a song you don't know. Thanks.
Now on MELfeed Video, here are the latest Wednesday TATS Lotto results just drawn a short time ago under government supervision. All results shown are subject to confirmation. We hope that these numbers brought you a little bit of luck tonight. If not, there's always next week. Stay tuned to MELfeed Video for more great programs this evening.
We reckon one of the most powerful things in the world is this sausage, because a sausage can do just about anything. It helps people to walk, see and hear, supports families after fire, drought and flood, and even helps plant trees in our community. Our sausages are working to cure cancer, helping farmers in tough times and connecting people who are new to a community. And at the same time that they're doing all that, they're nurturing the leaders of tomorrow while building friendships that last a lifetime. Yep, these humble sausages are more powerful than you can believe. They're working wonders in our community. And at Lions, so can you. Lions Australia, we serve more than sausages.
I got my big break about 5 years ago.
My big break came 10 years ago.
I got my break about 8 years ago.
If you're over 50 and have recently had a bone fracture from a minor bump or fall, you may have osteoporosis.
If you've had one break from osteoporosis, there's a good chance you'll have another.
Find out more, talk to your doctor, or call Osteoporosis Australia today.
Don't wait for your next big break.
RSPCA, for all creatures, great and small.
Called Out in Front. The mannequins in the maternity wear shop front window have headless, legless, hard, hollow plastic, straight-backed, skinny bodies. Pregnant with air, their ever-bulbous bellies are bright and empty as Easter eggs. Their tight, kaleidoscopic tops fashionably showing off those smooth and shiny 9-month bumps. No leaky tits, no heffalump hips, no varicose veins nor thickened ankles on these truncated trunks. At work, the heavily pregnant girl who's training me to take on her role grunts as she hauls herself upright, clutching the door frame for support. Unbalanced by the swollen globe of her growing flesh and bone baby, dwelling expectant in the world of time and space and gravity. Thanks.
It's about a guy who's given up. It's called Dear John. Dear John, we've been forgotten here, where barrel flashes twinkle nightly, pinning down the desire to keep breathing. In between these damp-handed letters home, we're lying tight, sweeping across desert delusions
in a claustro tank's cabin, nodding yes to gunners out of tuning X's. Dream, baby! And I do dream, swaying in and out of sleep's mummer-fresh washed sheets against my cheek, and the pattern-bombing boom-bass tremors as our best from the west punch the bejesus into the peoplescape. Some grunt-skinned dude pumps up, run to the hills, an Iron Maiden reminder to kids jerked into desperate grandma bundles. Hummers prickling with edgy GIs, and ghettoscape in camouflage this winter will be the cloth most torn, because we're wondering about the style involved in expiring like some fad does to oblivion, in expiring for crack-mouthed dealers legislating humanity into submission. Here, contract guns are law-ending, barking like a team's exaggerated, hyped voices on the verge of a loss.
This is a parody of a parody, a tribute, a hateful tribute, a loving parody of bush poetry, called The Boy from Castlemaine. I'm not from Castlemaine. I don't know anyone from Castlemaine. I expect to be lynched if there's anyone here from Castlemaine, but we'll do it anyway. Robert Jones from Castlemaine went to Melbourne town, dressed in his Sunday best, so dusty it looked brown. His battered ute looked out of place among the city cars. He walked about and stared at all the suits and all the bars. A simple man of hard work who daily works the land. In Fitzroy he did stare in shock at lesbians holding hands. A countryman and his hat and his dry as a bone. He felt a bit of culture shock 100 k's from home. He wandered through the city streets, his eyes all wide with shock, at boys he used to be girls, and at men wearing frocks. He marvelled at the bright colours the giggling women wore, as if a dress was something he'd never seen before. His dusty boots led him down to Commercial Road. The people there stared at him, a bumpkin in their home. The looks that people gave him filled him up with shame. I really am a country boy, me from Castlemaine. He staggered in a sun-struck haze, although the air was cool, trying as hard as he could not to look and act a fool. His coat was getting heavy, his hat weighed down his head. His boots felt weighted on his feet, he began to suffer dread. Robert Jones returned to his home in Castlemaine, knowing now that he will never be the same. His holiday changed him, changed his entire life. His holiday left him in considerable strife. His friends will ask him, Bob, what's the matter? And the answer he gave them is met at first with laughter, but his friends will notice his unsupportable pain as he nurses beer at the bar in Castlemaine. Now Bobby goes to Melbourne now, all the bloody time. His drinking mates don't understand, although they always try. Roberta's friends wonder how having new breast feels. And his shoe shop in Castlemaine has stock size 14 heels.
November notes. There is beauty in your face. There is trust in your eyes. There is warmth in the touch of your hand, and a little lilt in your voice's joy. How blissful, how dangerous, how intimately complex. There is you, the air that holds your very breath, the monarch who seeks no crown of love, who paints and is painted, who listens to the icon who gazes. The hand, the eye, the ear, the mouth, all smelt the open, wordless wound, all felt this symbiotic energy feed its owner. To hold the thought of you within a melody, to hold the thought of your continuance, your release, within tearful adieu. To ponder neglect, the choice of funeral, to acknowledge the distance, the isolate sorrow, to comfort a quiet table with the linchpin of conversation, to perceive the difference or lack within desire and grief, the flailings of early morning still awakening. There is no good, there is no bad, there is only bad manners. The smile forming on the edge of an ominous cliff, the sun foaming below our horizon, the screech of inner bird somewhere within this blaze, the melting of silence in the wake of its song gone wrong.
Joy, well-being, community, inclusion.
Special Olympics is a global movement for people with an intellectual disability, creating a world of inclusion and community through sport, where every person is accepted and welcomed, regardless of ability. One athlete, one volunteer, one family member at a time, helping to make the world a better place. Join the inclusion revolution by supporting Special Olympics.
And choose to include.
It's easy for things to go wrong around water. More so if you can't swim.
It's great seeing kids confident in the water and enjoying themselves. An important part of keeping kids safer around water is learning to swim.
There are over 600 registered swimming schools that run the Australian Unity Learn to Swim program. To find one, go to the Swim Australia website.
Show Me the Way creates the first social networking sites for Australia's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students. With secure online mentoring, Show Me the Way supports students to complete their schooling and continue to TAFE, university or vocational education. Show Me the Way connects students with e-mentors from corporate Australia. With secure online mentoring, Show Me the Way supports students to complete Year 12. To donate, visit showmetheway.org.au.
Coming up next on MELfeed.video.
15 fabulous minutes every week
On MELfeed.video.
Meet the famous, the fortunate and the fashionable as Steve and Jacqueline take you to all the events around town. Not to be missed, it's the most fabulous 15 minutes you'll ever see.
All right, all you lefties and righties, here's some true history for you. By the way, speaking of lefties and righties, I was saying to Melita before, oh God, I promised I wouldn't blab. All right. But I was asking Melita before about the outcome of the election poem, etc., because I was actually having a chat with my dearly beloved the other day how I wish we could pan that camera around. There's all these poets around here, and how all these people will miss John Howard in about 2 weeks' time because they're poets. And you need the pain! Anyways, did you know that Trotsky was the king of the Goths? Trotsky dodged the pickaxe that night, little known fact of history this, and ended up marrying that cold steel instead, which he inserted into his cranium voluntarily. Let me remind you, because it was a statement against his times, because he was trying to be different. He believed in being an individual as opposed to being dual like Descartes, who lived upstairs in the same hotel as he and used to steal Trotsky's milk and screw his cat for laughs. These times called for desperate heroes and desperate measures. So Trotsky, having foully punched Descartes in the mouth again and again, flew down the street like some possessed piñata, the X bobbing in his head, the X claiming independence but having none, and rightfully so, for the X was an agent of sodomy from somewhere beyond space, which I guess could make it, I don't know, back here or perhaps in Switzerland in 1922. Trotsky was running down the street, he who was the king of the Goths, for Trotsky was the king of the Goths. He sat in a dark room, reading French literature, writing his manifestos against the world, stroking his little Satan goatee, ruffling his messed up hair, bitter over not being understood, loving strange artsy women, and hanging with artsy weirdos by day, paranoid and nocturnal, granny specs correcting his side, spitting furiously at the world, the king of the Goths, listening to moody Russian orchestrations. Well, that was pretty much he in a nutshell, but superhero by day. Running along on the cobbled streets of Mexico, I claim ignorance, was his battle cry, which was lame and inexcusably incomprehensible, let's face it, but when you're part of history, you're allowed to bend some of the rules. I mean, no one held you accountable for that incident in Paris. You know, the one with the brothel and a 6-foot croissant and the priest and a daguerreotype, you know? Whatever. Well, I won't talk about your freaky croissant babies if you let me slip and slide with the Trotsky affair here, as it really happened. Now, the Trotsky, a fine oiled mechanism it was, wheels akimbo, spinning, rubbing along the road, spitting ice cream cones at man and machine. He believed in the Elvis reincarnated. For on the third day of every August, Elvis, he arose and wreaked terrible vengeance upon all the non-believers, causing widespread hallucinations. Everyone believed they were wearing red bandanas and that guitar music still mattered, well, acoustically anyways, and that rock and roll was a secretly coded soup recipe if you paid enough attention hard enough. Now, Trotsky, as I keep trying to say, Trotsky was into hamsters. Gigantic ones, brilliant ones, wise ones, entire empires of hamsters, some as big as the moon itself, with pyramids built into their skins and furs, where crazy Mexican priests rambled and smoked wacky tobacco, invented typewriters and made silly faces. All this in their underwear, for they feared not showing their underwear in public. Oh, giant worm gods protected them from the heathen mockery forces. They commanded the sky to rain fish when they wanted to. Well, that night, Trotsky slept alone again in his little room, holding his pillow tight, believing in the power of the dream, knowing he was a canister of worms waiting to be opened, if only someone knew how to open his lid. Luckily, the Russians knew, and they sent an engineer with a pickaxe, what allowed Trotsky to release the glowworms from his brainstem. Glowworms which floated to the sky and rained little glowworm droppings on us all. Some blue, most blue, some yellow, some green, some red, or more yellow, or more red, but most of them blue. Till the sky was rainbow, with Trotsky smiling in his sleep, and the smell of fish filling the room too strongly to resist. So Trotsky died that night, split from ear to history and back again, making general fertility a rule and convenient genius acceptable, if not entirely necessary. He died alone and dreamed he was a pheasant, smiling with his face, spewing a brain out that was welcome around the world. Here lies Trotsky, king of the Goths. He shot himself into our brains.
A dream. Read 1 Samuel 18. Saul unto David, a big black-bearded man, unto one not much younger, likewise sporting a beard. As he lifts his spear, hurls it, and something is speared, says, "Come take your chance, my boy, I'll give you one." David is nervous. He is starting to run. Behind the next tent, the young man disappeared, cast his spear from hiding, and something was spared. For all that occurred that day, nothing was done. Later, Saul unto Michal, his young beautiful daughter, much younger than David. You may think that you love him, but do you understand what follows from that? Your hereditary power to decide what is order and what's chaos you'll give him, what's below and above him, the plenipotentiary power of the state, in fact.
Another space poem. This is called Re-Entry. At first, there is no gravity. Everything suspended in weightless silence. The straps that bind equipment in place wave in space like tentacles. Then you feel it. This encroaching force, gathering strength, getting you in its grip as objects remember weight. All the straps fall to the floor. You feel every organ in your body. All around you, aerodynamic noise starts roaring, and the landing gear begins to activate.
Things to remember when waging war. Try not to kill too many Belgians. Never attack through the same forest twice. Always be inventive when naming secret weapons, and do not put a fat man in charge of an air force. Gas should be used only in chambers. Having a big gun is not a sign of fertility. If you spend a lot of money, you must use the weapon it paid for. No matter what day it is, it will not be over by Christmas. Johnny will always come marching home on crutches, and you can only speak softly if you're the one carrying the tank division.
Hi again. We're just about to head into 15 fabulous minutes, and that will be followed by the CEC Report and of course Transports of Distant Delight at 11 o'clock tonight. So keep watching for the rest of our programs tonight, and don't forget Vidibus Radio is operating sometimes. Once we move to Echuca in a couple of weeks, it'll be 24 hours a day. But for now, it's only operating every now and then on test mode. But we will be changing it to 24 hours very soon. So have a listen to Vidibus Radio. Just have a look at the website there, vidibus.com.au/radio to listen in there. We've got episodes of the Parang Cricket Club podcast running there at the present time. Anyway, that's all for now, and I'll see you again next week.
Each week on MELfeed Video, join us for Northern Access Television's general interest chat show, NAT Chat. Each episode features interesting and informative interviews from people of all walks of life. Weekly topics include community groups, religious topics, and professional people covering many different subject areas. That's NAT Chat every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. here on MELfeed Video. Live stream from Melbourne each week, this is MELfeed Video, a different sort of TV.
Here I am in the store and I'm talking to Toddy Goldsmith about cosmetics, and she's just getting a touch-up now. As you can see, she's wearing her own lipstick called Spirit. We'll ask more questions about it just after she touches up. Here I am in the store and we're talking Spirit, this new lipstick which you've actually chosen the colour for.
I did, which is it's a spring-summer colour, and it's sort of like a brown chiffon, and it's very subtle and it's very feminine. And so hence it sort of, I thought it goes well with the angelic range.
Is it hard to choose a colour?
It is, because I love so many different things. I've never been like I don't have one type of music I like everything.
Yeah.
But I knew that I wanted something sort of very natural, just something a little bit deeper than my own natural lip colour, and something that I didn't look too made up. And then when you were, like I put it on now, but with a gloss, a really shiny gloss over the top, which actually dresses it up a lot more.
So what sort of mood would you have to be in to wear this? Is it an evening? Is it a morning?
Well, I think it's
everyday use?
I think it's an everyday use, but I think when you've got the gloss on, it's for night as well.
Yeah.
It's very cashmere. It's very beautiful.
So how does it make you feel in general?
Clean. It's very clean kind of. But I like all of the new and the range. I really like Soul as well, which is a much sort of richer, deeper colour. I think they're all beautiful. I don't think mine's any better than the others. I think it's such a good range.
Do you ever mix at all? Do you think that you can mix with
I've
lipstick?
I've got Soul on at the moment, but Spirit, but a tiny bit of Soul underneath it, just to bring it out more.
And gloss on top, so you're really quite layered there.
Oh, I'm a very layered girl.
So that means whenever you touch a glass, you're going to have this imprint everywhere.
Huge mess.
And kissing guys, that's going to be trouble.
There's only one guy and he loves it because it smells so good. Did you cut it out?
Cut what out?
Four girlfriends. You've lost them all now.
You can't talk when we're doing lips.
Oh, okay.
Actually, this gloss I've got on at the moment has got a couple of oils, but one of them is a spearmint oil. And as you're putting it on, it just wafts up into your nose, and I just want to eat it off my mouth at the moment.
That could be a downfall for lipstick, couldn't it? You're chewing the bottom lip.
Beautiful. It's so beautiful.
Now, has this got essential oils in it?
This has got, well, most of the lipsticks have got rose oil. And then rose is a very essential oil. It's actually got a bit of a...
Rose is a good friend of mine.
Rose is good. The properties of rose, it provides emotional comfort in times of turbulence, enlivens the heart, increases affection and sexual desire, amongst other things.
So you feel quite sexy at the moment?
Well, I do, because I'm all dolled up.
You are all
Girls do
dolled
feel
up.
sexy. I'm in a beautiful dress and beautiful makeup.
So how important are essential oils in makeup to you?
Incredibly important. I wouldn't use a product unless they're all natural. Just wouldn't go near them. I've done it before I knew any better. And also because my daughter, Layla, who's 5, gets into my makeup big time, I let her go for it, because if it goes all over her face, it doesn't matter, it's not going to hurt her skin. Yeah. And I don't put anything in my mouth that's not pure, so I put it on my face and body. I also use the bath crystals and the body moisturiser, and you just know, because everything you put on your body actually gets absorbed into the system, no matter which way you look at it. So I feel very safe using these products.
It's sweet, start to eat from no hold this shows to menage sweet. Now I be the cat that be hard to eat. Get your hand from further, you know how to speak.
As the hand, the face, if you're wearing a gorgeous sleeveless top, think about the arm and have a look at some of the fun and exciting things that are happening in store today. Break out of your comfort zone and look like an angel with sheer...
I noticed you're covered in glitter.
I've got my body art and I've got my fake diamond ring that I'm hanging out to get one day. I love this.
How do you find the response to today, though? How's it going?
Well, people are sort of standing around looking at me a lot.
Well, you are Tony Goldsmith, I must say.
Well, they're just wondering, who's this chick in the pink sitting up there looking like, who's this? But it's been really good. A lot of people are asking photographs, and a lot of people are really interested in the product. And also, I think Madonna has really made this body art sort of very profile, and a lot of young people are coming around and really getting it done on their cheeks.
As much as looking as a princess as you do you go out much at all? You're a bit of a scene queen out there, must wear the glitter and the
I seem to be more than I actually am. I'm a mother, I'm 36 years old, I've got a 5-year-old daughter, and going out isn't as important to me anymore. But when I do, it's important that I feel good. And I'm actually doing the Rocky Horror Show at the moment in Sydney, and we do 8 shows a week. And so
you're dressing quite well. You're playing Janet, so you're going
I wear all this stuff. I wear all the glitter on my eyelids, and when
That's towards the end or in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, I cheat a
play
bit.
a very bland character.
Well, then I take off my dress, and I'm covered in glitter from head to toe.
Is it she glitter?
Yeah, of course it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love it, and I don't use anything else. I used to use MAC lipstick, and I don't use MAC lipstick anymore. And the nail polish, I just adore.
This is like opal, isn't it?
Well, this was a pink. It's called angelic underneath, and then an opal colour put on top, and just sort of, you know, picks up the light, and it makes it a little bit more glamorous than just the plain thing.
So Angel's the theme.
Angel's the theme.
You're looking very angelic, I must say.
That's from She Australia, and it really is a mark. And we've even got...
Just one last question. Do you see any new cosmetic ranges coming through for yourself? Any new colours, ideas?
Oh, I don't know. I have to talk to Susan about that. But I'd love to. I'm just really hoping that she gets into doing, which I'm sure she will, doing bases and things, because everything she brings out is such brilliant quality. So I'm just waiting for the brushes, the base, the whole...
You want the full work.
I want the
doing
work.
the layering system
Because
from top to bottom.
girls love having everything matching. And, you know, we've got to get her, you know, nudge her so we have a whole set.
You've got to start somewhere, I guess, and build your way
Oh,
up.
look, she's done an amazing job. In 3 years, she's just done extraordinarily well. And, you know, I remember when she first came to me and she just started with a few lipsticks, and what she's done with it is just brilliant. I really take my hat off to her. I really admire her.
Do you see the face? Do you see yourself as the face of She in the future?
Well, I tell you,
Would you like to be the face of She in the future?
well, I'd be proud to be. I think it's wonderful.
Well, you back it very well.
Oh,
Thank you. Well, thanks for coming to Melbourne for today as well.
oh, it's been a joy, my hometown. I love it here.
You should move down. Melbourne's a great
I'm
place.
coming back.
You're coming back. Well, there you go. You heard it first.
little tips and secrets that our makeup artists can share with you, showing you...
Well, here we are in store, and we've got a victim here to try Toddy's new lipstick, Spirit. She's going to wear it with a cocoa lip liner. Sounds sexy. Do you feel sexy? Now, wearing Spirit, which is Toddy's lipstick, does that make you feel like Toddy? It's all very glamorous. Getting the drag queen effect, but don't delay, it should look beautiful.
I love Toddy's colour. Hello, I'm Susan from She Australia, and we're so lucky to have Toddy in store with us today promoting Angel and her very own lip colour, Spirit. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Oh, it's an
Everybody loves you and loves to see you. And do you remember when we first met?
I do remember at Channel 7.
Can you believe that? That was going back 2 years ago.
Yeah, in the makeup room, and it was your first range of lipsticks. I think you had about 4 of them at the time.
It was 8 we were planning. Yeah, Goddess is part of it.
What word? I can't remember the name
Ether,
now.
Angel,
Ether,
Diva, Nymph, Siren, Mermaid, and the Goddess.
That's right.
And Toddy came in and
Star.
And Star.
Yeah.
Right, there you go. And Toddy came in and showed me, she wanted to show me a special colour, which she didn't have. And that's how our relationship started. She came back to Melbourne. She didn't have the colour with her. And she showed me another colour that was really, really special. And ever since then, we've always kept in touch, talking colours. And here she is with us today with her own colour in the She range. Isn't that wonderful?
And it's what I'm wearing now, which is Spirit. And it's beautiful. I've actually got the moonlight gloss on top of it. But it's, so many people have commented on it since they've been in here.
Actually, people have come over to Toddy and actually asked her what colour you're wearing. And that's really special too.
Yeah, it's great.
And also, I think it's wonderful that we've been able to incorporate aromatherapy into the range, because She is a philosophy and it's a style and people feel it. I'm sure you can get an experience of the ambience in the store today and how excited people get about the body art, about the glitter. It's just lovely that you can make people happy and brighten them up through colour and through a little message.
And through smell.
Yeah, they just love it. Like our theme, come let us show you the wonder that can be, angelic sparkles and shades of love. That's what we have on our brochure and that's the message that we give and we hope people love it. Thank you so much for coming today.
I just must say one of the other beautiful things about it is it's ultimately feminine. It's just the antithesis of femininity, which is great because a lot of makeups or ranges went through a stage of being quite masculine and dramatic, and this is dramatic in the most feminine sense, which I just love. And being able to be feminine is coming right back in again. Thank you.
Coming season. It's Angel, it's from She Cosmetics, and it really is exciting for this spring and summer. Call over, have fun, express yourself with She. You too can look like an angel. and showing you just how to have fun. Challenges out of your makeup application and showing you just how to have fun. The colour collection is Angel for this summer, and it is a dreamy shade for lips, for eyes, for fingertips. Shades like Angel and Illusion, the lipstick colours Spirit, Divine, Angelic, Sacred.
Yeah.
So the clearance for today, and admire, and with Assurance Australia. It is an Australian product, it is a whole lot of fun. So call over, have a little look. So the clearance for today, and admire, and with Assurance Australia. It is an Australian product, it is a whole lot of fun. So call over, have a look.
Good evening, and here we are at the 4th Annual Melbourne Fringe Fashion Awards. Steve, you're?
Fashionably late, of course. And what are we expecting tonight?
Lots and lots of fashions and unusual fashions, cutting-edge fashions, not unlike the ones on my right. This is a little bit of what you will be seeing this evening on the catwalk. We're in the corridor at the moment, and what do we have here?
We have the Decadent Disc Dolly, and yes, I'm made out of CDs. And I felt I fitted into the character quite easily.
Why is that?
Because I'm a bit decadent myself. And yes.
Are you ready? And who designed this gorgeous outfit?
I designed it myself. It's all me. I'm modelling it too. And I designed it.
Thank you so much. Behind me here we have...
my name is Misty, but my design is really nameless, but it doesn't mean it's not good because it's really good.
That is fantastic. It blows bubbles.
Yeah, I have to shoot that at the judges. We only bought this today, sprayed it silver. I'm meant to be sort of superhero, but I don't think this is very deadly.
You're a bit of a tank girl of the 1990s, aren't you?
Yeah, no, just, yeah.
Okay, so here we are backstage with one of the designers, Hanya. Now, what inspired you for your outfit tonight?
My arachnophobia. I'm just trying to get over it one day, and I figured out this is the best way to do it.
So is this a bit of a challenge doing this tonight? We're competing against everybody else. What are you sort of expecting from everybody else here?
I don't see it as being competition anyway. I just see it as just a whole lot of weird people doing weird things and showing it to everyone and expressing what the hell they're doing.
Well, have fun out there tonight. Are you by yourself? Or are you doing a whole other creation as well, or just the outfit you got on tonight?
Just this.
Just this. Good luck.
Here we are with none other than the marshmallow dress, indoor marshmallow dress. It's absolutely amazing, and it's real. And it's real. This is the thing. How many marshmallows? 5 kilos. 5 kilos of marshmallows. Heavy? Very.
And how many did you eat during making the selfie?
I didn't make it.
You didn't make it?
I've had about probably 10.
10. See, originally it was a full back and now it's a strapless number. You've eaten this much out.
Hungry.
Is it very uncomfortable in something like this?
Entirely.
So this is really not practical.
Fashion feels no pain.
What's in my kidnap? You're a kidnap?
Yes,
Just don't do it. He follows me everywhere.
And what's your kidnap made out of?
Licorice.
That is disgusting, isn't it?
Going to be around. Where are you going out?
So how's it been? How's it been backstage? You know, all excitement?
Well, I've been here since 12 lunchtime, and it's been bloody mayhem here all afternoon. So I'm going out to have a cigarette.
She's over it.
See you later.
Well, here we are with another 2 creations in the hallways on the 2nd level. Now, we've got one outfit here inspired by, well, they look like Dangerfield bags and bubble wrap. What's the theme behind this outfit?
theme, I've actually got a jacket with my dogfish in there. So, you know, take my pets everywhere. I haven't got the jacket on, so it's trigger part. But yeah, Dangerfield gave me bags, and I just love the bags. They can carry water. That's about it, really.
Got a water bag in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're all zipped up here, and this wonderful creation since the 18th century is all just made of zips.
Yeah, they're actually sleeping bag zippers.
Sleeping bag zippers.
Yep, and they're all been hand cut to size, and they all work. Every single one of them all works. And my designer's name's Tracy Fregon, and YKK gave her all the zippers because they were throwing them out, so she salvaged them.
And that's the whole theme tonight, is just disposable, reusable items in general.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for that particular part of the show.
Well, I'll just zip you up and we'll go off to our next one.
Oh.
I just asked her about the different categories. That one and salad. And now I'm joined by my volunteer coordinator and just about every single thing else we used to do here backstage to get them out on there, yeah?
Yeah. Time calls, making sure costumes are down in the right places, making sure models are all dressed. We've got lots of other lovely people that are organising all sorts of other stuff to make it work. And Max is also here as the coordinator.
Right, can you give us a brief rundown of the different categories?
Okay, first up we've got salvage. Yep. That's amazing outfits, all made from recycled things, tubes, plastics, polyesters, whatever they can get their hands on. Yeah, all sorts.
Has anyone seen my pet peacock? Has anyone seen my pet peacock?
Yeah! It's perfect. I don't think how did that happen?
Don't bring your animals here. Sometimes it gets a little bit too much. Staying here all day covered in plastic.
That's alright.
You okay?
I actually got caught in this fashion parade thing, but I was out ready to do my shopping. So I just put me outside and so there was a fashion show.
And that's where you are now? Does that mean after the fashion show we get to dispose of you and just throw you out in the garbage?
Well, I might take home a bottle of champagne and this.
That's the kind of madness you'll find backstage.
The staircase winds around her to further reiterate the ascension idea, and on the back you'll find Venus's Botticelli.
Fantastic. And how do you feel?
Cold.
Look at those lashes. Apart from cold, how do you feel and how were you chosen as the model?
Well, I'm a good friend of Yvonne's, so she had me in mind for the design from the start. So, but it feels great to be part of this night.
Now, the fashions tonight are a bit eclectic. Do you see this as maybe something that's going to be worn on the streets?
Well, I don't think so, but I think it's more a little bit of fun. I'm a painter and that's my profession, so I decided to change my canvas into the human form instead of usual and see what I could do in regards to fashion, and so that's more where I've come from.
We've just finished the parade, we're just ready to hear everyone. I'm hoping that I haven't because I want to get this off. It's really hot and sweaty.
Totally.
Actually, I'd like to get hot and sweaty with the woman that's holding the video camera.
Donato. Lindy Sook. The winner of the title is Kelly Patricia Thomas.
Well, now you know what fringe fashion is all about. It's about hats, marshmallows, and the freakiest fashion that you can see. So don't forget, next year, Fringe Festival at Metro, where else but. Catch you there.
Has anyone seen my pet peacock? Has anyone seen my pet peacock?
Yeah! It's perfect.
Live stream from Melbourne each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
I didn't think this could happen in Toowoomba. And then I saw it on TV that night. It really opened my eyes.
Whenever the community comes to us and says we need your help, we do whatever we can to assist.
It is a great feeling to be able to help your neighbours, to be able to help your community.
Each Lions member and each Lions club in different parts of the country, we're totally different. But we have core values that are the same. They remain the same for any Lions member and any Lions club anywhere in not just Australia but around the world.
Anything that you can think of that you want to do and support and help, Lions are doing it right now somewhere in this world.
I think Lions need to tell their story. They need to let people know the amazing things that they do.
The three major streams that we have in Lions are the community service that we do for the public, health and medical research, and the disaster relief.
We're out there to help people. If you love helping people, get out and help them. Join a Lions Club.
We started this project about 20 years ago. All this gear would normally go to the tip. We recycle it and give it to someone less fortunate and where it is needed in the world.
Being a Lion here in Australia means that I can make a difference to my community. But most importantly, it's inspiring other people to get out and be part of their community and make it a safer and a much happier and better place to live.
Childhood cancer, I've always been interested in cancer and small children from the time I first got cancer 30 years ago. Research is an indefinite item. You can't see it, but it helps so much.
I'm here managing the money and the relationships, but other people are out there raising funds and bringing in community support. Without all of us working together, we can't affect change.
2 more extra hands at any function, any working bee, anything we do, 2 more hands can help us raise more funds, can help us serve our community better.
I went to my Lions Club and I said, I got this idea and I think it's a little bit crazy, but I think we could raise some serious money doing it. And it was to run 100 kilometres. And the club said, okay,
if you want to do this, whatever you need us to do, we'll be there 100%. And I'm pretty proud to say that together we raised just over $16,000. So we blew the target out of the water, and I think that was due to a lot of the support that I got.
Through my leadership training and all that, I've learned about thinking global, acting local, and Lions Club is definitely that kind of thing. They act within their communities, but the money that they raise can often end up in any corner of the world.
As an individual, I could only do so much, and whilst it was my burning desire to try and help these people, having an organisation such as the Lions family to call upon to support me and those people that were working with me just made it possible for us to achieve so much more.
You know, after the devastation, to come back into the community, you know, you were shattered by what you saw. You know, no police station, no post office, no petrol station, you know, no kindergarten. There was nothing here.
And all that water with an unstoppable.
I don't know that I've ever seen as much as arrived. There were fridges, washing machines, dryers. There was toasters, jugs, just everything.
To be invited to be a part of Lions just opened up a whole new world to me. A world that provided a structured organisation that could see that the hours that I volunteered could achieve so much more.
I think Lions is a wonderful organisation. The people in it have charity in their hearts.
I can go anywhere in this country, see somebody with a Lions badge, walk up to them and say, "Good day, you got a friend."
Never once in my life had I had a group of people where I could go to, say anything, and know that no matter what, they would be there, they would stand by me.
It's the family. That's what we call it's the Lions family. Without Lions, I think I'd be lost now because they've been my life.
We work hard, but the most important thing is we have fun.
The fellowship of all the members of the club, the broader community, it's just a tremendous organisation to belong to. You know, I'll be here till I die.
It is extremely rewarding and gratifying to be a part of an organisation that can spread its support so far and wide.
More members means more hands, means more support to the community.
I would encourage everyone just to give it a go and see if it is for them, because the return that you get for giving to others is amazing.
Get out there, do something wonderful, be part of this fantastic organisation.
Each week, MELfeed.video presents the CEC Report. The Citizens Electoral Council of Australia presents a weekly program of political and economic analysis with policy solutions which are aimed at saving Australia from economic collapse, and also suggest ways in which interested members of the public can assist in their campaigns. The CEC Report, coming up next on MELfeed.video. Live stream from Melbourne each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Welcome to the CEC Report for the 6th of July 2018. I'm Elisa Barwick. Joining me today is CEC Research Director Robert Barwick. Welcome, Robert.
Thanks, Elisa.
And on today's show, crash imminent for Australia's property-addicted banks and Australia's fascist laws cover up government crimes. Now, before we get started, we're going to cross to Perth for the latest from our candidate for the Perth by-election, Barry Mason. So we'll just hear quickly from him.
Okay, Barry Mason here, reporting from Perth for the upcoming by-election on the 28th of July for the federal seat of Perth. We're out here today in Leederville talking to people who are stopping to hear what we've got to say, which is to break up the banks, to stop their speculating and their gambling, and talking to people in a business-to-business situation, and meeting a lot of fantastic people that are really stopping to have a listen to what we've got to say. So what we're asking, if you see us out in the streets of Perth, by all means call by, say hello, and let us protect our economy from this global financial crisis that isn't too far away.
So as Barry aptly ended with there, the GFC that is oncoming is not far away and Australia has to protect its economy. Now I want to run through a series of articles that there's been a whole spate of them over the last week or so on the housing bubble. Firstly, this is from 9 News on the 23rd June. Housing prices falling across Australia as property bubble slowly deflates. And you'll see on the map there that this article reports on the beginning of the fall of housing prices. Next here is news.com.au from the 23rd of June. Housing powder keg ready to blow. Property price falls are turning out to be bigger and longer lasting than expected, this article says, but don't expect the Reserve Bank to step in to stop it.
And well, there's not that much the Reserve Bank can do when interest rates are already so low.
That's right. Borntoinvest.com, July 2nd, is the Australian real estate market in a bubble? And this calls Australia the canary in the coal mine for housing markets globally. And it says the UBS Global Real Estate Bubble Index, which is wild that they even have such a thing, puts Australia in amongst the highest risk markets in the world, and says if the conditions in the Australian real estate market sound familiar, they should. They're an almost perfect duplicate of the conditions in the US real estate market just before the 2008 crash. And it even goes on to suggest that if this blows in Australia, it'll have a worldwide impact. Then we've got Wolf Street from July 2nd, update on deflating property bubbles in Sydney and Melbourne, which quotes the same core logic data from the last article. Recent home buyers could be facing negative equity.
And that's a real worry for everybody out there, Elisa. And even though Australia has full recourse mortgages, which means the banks can pursue you to the grave, and so Australians are the last people to usually default on their loans, if you're under negative equity, if you're in negative equity and you've got no hope, right, then even a lot of Australians are going to go, no, I can't keep this up, and there could be mass defaults. And
they cite the figure for Sydney home prices falling 4.6% in June compared to 1 year ago. Then we have the AFR from 2nd July. Top economists turn more bearish on property prices. And it says during the year, Sydney prices fell a steeper 4.5% for the city's worst price performance since the global financial crash in 2009.
Now think about that for a minute. Everyone understood why property prices went down in the GFC. We supposedly don't have a GFC and we've had the same level of fall. This is the bubble starting to burst.
Now, ABC News Business Journal Michael Jander pointed to how the previous decision has centred on how high home prices could rise, but suddenly all major indices are showing falling prices, with leading indicators like housing finance and auction clearance rates showing no signs of a bounce. 2018 has moved on to a discussion of how far house prices will fall. And he cites ANZ and Macquarie expecting Sydney and Melbourne prices to decline by a mere 10%.
Well, as Mr. Kerrigan said in the castle, tell them they're dreaming.
Exactly, because once it starts, there's no bottom in this thing. Now, University of New South Wales economics professor Richard Holden on ABC's 7:30 show on the 20th of June warned of a wave of defaults as $360 billion of interest-only loans reset to include principal plus interest repayments over the next 3 years. And he talked about a nightmare scenario in which a lot of people need to sell at once, and that's when you see a kind of fire sale mentality and could see very significant downward pressure on prices. That puts the banks under stress and their balance sheets under stress, and it could lead to significant financial instability. And he also commented in a column, Vital Signs for the Conversation, that for many people this transition to principal plus interest will involve increases in monthly repayments of 30 to 40%. At a time when wages growth has been persistently sluggish, many people don't have much wiggle room. If their payments go up, they are going to struggle to make them. Now, the wiggle room is actually less than what most people think, and this was taken up also in an article by Bloomberg from the 28th of June, headlined "How Australia's Banks Became the World's Biggest Property Addicts." And this article describes Australia's huge gamble on property, meaning we were betting the bubble would continue to grow unabated, which was literally the only way borrowers could keep servicing the debt that we've taken on. In other words, they're saying it's a Ponzi scheme. And Bloomberg asked the question, how resilient will Australian households be in the event of an economic downturn? And there's a few graphs we'll show because some of the factors involved in how resilient we are, because they say that our banks are well capitalised for one thing.
Well, that's the thing with this. There's a few things in the Bloomberg article where they accept the claims about the banking system, and I take exception to what they accept, and that makes their story, the conclusion of their story, even worse than they say it is, right? So, for instance, they say the banks are well capitalised. Well, they're not. We know the Australian government claims that our banks have 14.5% capital, which makes them unquestionably strong, but that's this ruse of risk-weighted capital. Their actual capital is only 6%, which means they're leveraged 19 times, which means that their assets only have to go down 6% for them to be technically bankrupt, right? And so when you add that with then the rest of the Bloomberg article, it's really, really frightening.
And they do show here in this graph that we'll put up that our household debt is over 120% of GDP. And they say in the article that anything over 80% is a problem. So this is way
look
over.
How much higher. Look, what's useful about this graph is the comparison to the rest of the world. Look how much higher than the rest of the world we are. And we don't have a graph for it, but the other thing that's much higher than the rest of the world in this context is the amount of lending that our banks do into property. It's 63% of their business. Now, even in America, at the height of the GFC, banks weren't lending more than 40% doing more than 40% of their lending into housing. Nowadays, US banks are down to 30%, British banks are down to 20%. Hong Kong, which has its own bubble, the banks in Hong Kong only do 15% of their lending into housing. No banks in the world have been as exposed to property ever that Australia's banks are at the moment.
No wonder there's warnings that this is a threat to the whole global system. And they point out that despite, well, this was another one of their little delusions, despite 27 years of economic growth, the article says even still that people are scrimping to pay the mortgage.
Well, and it's worth explaining that. Despite everyone hears this line, 27 years of economic growth. What you've got to understand is for the second half of those 27 years at least, or more, 2/3 of it, that economic growth has actually been mostly the growth of this property bubble. So it's not real economic growth. So this is the Ponzi scheme thing that again, right? They've recorded this as economic growth, where all it is, it's been the growth in something that has been sapping the rest of us. We call that a cancer, right? That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, and then they talk about the fact that certain vulnerabilities include interest-only loans shifting to include principal, which this graph shows how the repayments could almost double.
Well, and no one can handle that, Elisa. Going from payments of $1,800 or $1,900 a month to $3,500 a month, you can't handle. We'll put the other chart up on the screen that shows the growth in these interest-only loans in the last 5 years. There's a huge chunk of interest-only loans that'll reset after 5 years, and there's a wave of them coming through now where people are going to be dealing with these types of jumps in repayments.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I want to point out about this article, they talk about how last year, I couldn't believe this when I read it, last year the Reserve Bank did a study that said the average borrower has a buffer on repayments equivalent to 2.5 years. So if you're an average borrower listening to this, the Reserve Bank thinks you've got 2.5 years of repayments stuck in your back pocket somewhere as a buffer if something goes wrong. If the Reserve Bank actually believes that, then everyone should be terrified, right? We are being ruled by fools. There's no way that's true. Finder.com does these regular surveys, and the last one was 54% of mortgage holders could not handle a $100 a month increase in their payments, or else it would trip them over the edge, right? So the Reserve Bank, which we expect, like with APRA, is sort of supervising all this, you know, has everything under control. They're in a totally different alternative reality.
Yeah. Now we have to take a quick break, but we'll be right back after this to discuss the implications of all this.
Behind your favourite team, there's another team. At all levels, in all codes, sports trainers are working to make sport safer. Sports trainers learn injury prevention techniques from doctors and other health professionals so they can provide the right first aid when the going gets tough. If your team could do with a sports trainer, maybe it's time you got a little closer to the action. Find out how you can become a sports trainer. Sports Medicine Australia, providing the team behind the team.
Every minute.
Every hour.
Every mother and father.
Every sister and brother.
Every son and every daughter.
Everyone you see.
Everyone you cheer.
Everyone you watch.
And everyone you hear.
Everyone you meet.
Everyone you know.
Everyone you love.
Everyone is affected.
Reach out and get connected.
So how have things been going?
When a young person is diagnosed with cancer, it affects their family, their friends, their entire world. Red Kite supports young people with cancer and those around them in real ways.
Yeah, hi, it's Michael. Yeah, I'm at the hospital.
We rely on your generosity to make a positive difference in the lives of thousands of families every year. We can't always make things better, but with your help, we can lighten the load.
Welcome back to the CEC Report, where we're discussing the imminent collapse of our mortgage-ridden banks. Now, of course, the solution we've talked about a lot on the show is the Glass-Steagall solution, which is to take all the speculative activity off the bank's books, which dries up the bubble.
Well, it's Glass-Steagall does two things. One, when this crashes, if it's in place, it protects us from that crash, right? That's the most important. There's a real urgency to that side of it. The second one is what you just said. If you impose Glass-Steagall, all the gambling that the banks do on these mortgages, which makes them so profitable for them, because that's what they make a loan, then they go and make all these bets on the loan, right? They can't do that, and if they can't do that anymore, then that huge pile of lending into property stops. It'll slow down, sorry. And we can, start cleaning it up.
Now, fortunately, Federal MP for Kennedy, Bob Catter, tabled legislation which includes this, all the powers to do this, in the Federal Parliament on the 25th of June. And if you haven't already done so, ring your Member of Parliament, even better go and visit your Member of Parliament to demand they back this bill. We need to get a majority of support to get this even debated. So that's the next fight that we have to wage. So follow up your MP if you haven't heard their response on how they would vote on this, demand they raise it for debate. Now, after Bob tabled this legislation, it was interesting, he went along to the Royal Commission, he actually intervened demanding action on what the farmers require to get justice from the banks. The Royal Commission into farming was extended at that point, and then later in the week the Senate actually voted up a motion demanding the government extend it for an additional year, which is not binding, but there's a certain pressure here which is very, very useful. And also in the same week there was a discussion that was raised by two Queensland economists, Mark McGovern and Ben Rees, calling for a development bank. And these were both members of Queensland's 2016 Rural Debt and Drought Task Force. And they said rural lending used to be based on long-term finance with an eye to long-term success, not immediate cash flow needed to repay. So there's more of a focus coming on what are banks for? What do we have to return them to?
And what the way to think about this particular proposal is that it's about recapitalising our economy. There's so much of the money in our economy is speculative money, right, which is a parasite. And we put out a press release this week, Elisa, yesterday. In fact, it was quoting a statement issued by Dr. Wilson Sy, who's has been helping us on this campaign for Glass-Steagall. And of course, he's an expert in banking. He used to work at APRA. And his whole release called Why Glass-Steagall, but it's about how speculation is a cancer. And Glass-Steagall is necessary to as an operation to cut the cancer out of the system. But once you do that, you've got to recapitalise. Once you get the speculation out, you've got to recapitalise the economy with real productive credit, right, that can get the economy going again. And so you need institutions like public banks, the development bank, as their proposal to do that.
Yep. Now, I want to situate this in the context because we're undergoing a major shift, and our tabling of this bill in the Parliament is an indication of a turning point for a major political shift where the population are awakening because of the crisis. And we've seen, of course, this happening, for example, since the election of Jeremy Corbyn to the leadership of the opposition Labor Party in the UK. We saw it with the election of Trump. We've seen it with Brexit. We've seen it in the recent Italian elections where left and right came together to form a coalition which included policies like Glass-Steagall.
And these are shifts driven by the people. These are voter-driven shifts. These are not top-down directed things, right?
Organised things,
and all the normal strictures over politics that usually keep politics quite tightly controlled are breaking down as this is happening. That's why we can talk about Trump and Corbyn in the same sentence, even though they're very different types of people. It's not about them, it's about the public that's saying we want to change here.
And another case of this has just occurred in the United States where on the 26th of June, a 28-year-old political newcomer defeated a 20-year veteran incumbent candidate, Representative Joe Crowley, in the Democratic primary. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's the 28-year-old, she won by 57% of the vote to his 43%. He's the fourth ranking Democrat in the House by seniority, was chairman of the House Democratic Caucus and a leading candidate to replace Nancy Pelosi as House Democratic leader. And the same day, Ben Jealous won the Democratic primary for Governor of Maryland, defeating a party-backed candidate with 40% of the vote in a 9-way race.
Which by US standards is very impressive.
Exactly. So this is good. So these are primaries. And they're both backed by newly formed activist groups drawn from the Bernie Sanders networks. Ocasio-Cortez campaigned for Glass-Steagall explicitly, and she said that she won the vote of unlikely voters who are never even contacted by pollsters.
And last week, Elisa, we played this clip from 3 years ago where Fox Business was saying that because one of the first candidates to declare in the US presidential process, Martin O'Malley, campaigned for Glass-Steagall. He said he was going to go for Glass-Steagall. They called him Wall Street's public enemy #1. And his campaign didn't go anywhere, but Bernie Sanders picked up what he did, and Bernie Sanders made Glass-Steagall the issue last year, or in 2016, and that's continuing now. So even though Wall Street uses all its corrupt power to keep the Congress in line, that is breaking. This woman spent $300,000 on her campaign, compared to the guy she beat who spent $4 million. That's Wall Street money. But when you're at this point where all those normal things, the money that usually keeps politics under control, isn't enough anymore to stop this upswelling of public anger.
And an anti-establishment candidate, Manuel Lopez Obrador, has just won the Mexican election, and they're calling him Mexico's Jeremy Corbyn. So that was another shock upset that wasn't expected. So there's more of these on the cards, and it's about to hit Australia. So everything we do to put Glass-Steagall and our other solutions in the mix is critical. Now call in to get a free copy of our Australian Alert Service if you haven't already, to find out more
and if
on
you're
that
in Perth,
subject.
And if you're in Perth, support Barry Mason's campaign.
And we'll be right back to talk about our fascist national security laws after this break.
It's always been my dream to represent Australia in the Olympics. Epilepsy affects nearly 250,000 Australians. Like me, most people have their seizures controlled with medication. Even today, people with epilepsy face incredible discrimination, but this prejudice is just another obstacle we can overcome. We're just as capable as anyone else, and often we have to be stronger. I promise I'll do my best for Australia. Will you do your best for me?
Hi, I'm Darren McElwain from Air FM Drive. You can tune into my show from 3 to 6 p.m. on 88.0 in Penrith and also on tunein.com. And apparently, we don't throw rocks. Air FM Drive.
Australian women need to kiss more. Watch out for persistent and unusual symptoms, as they could be a sign of ovarian cancer. Know the important signs and symptoms. Kiss. Look out for symptoms like abdominal or back pain, difficulty eating or feeling full quickly, or persistent bloating, or a change in toilet habits. If you're experiencing persistent and unusual symptoms for more than 14 days, see a GP. Make sure you kiss regularly.
Transports of Distant Delight is a mixed selection of transportation pictures from here and there and almost everywhere, but not quite. Some quirky, some mundane, some from the past, perhaps reflecting a transit system that has vanished into history, and some from thriving transport entities that continue to endure despite the constant pressures from the all-pervasive motorcar. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the CEC Report. Finally, Australia's fascist laws cover up government crimes. So as we reported in the show last week, last Thursday night, the suite of new foreign interference and espionage laws passed the Australian Parliament, and we showed, of course, last week, Federal Member of Parliament Andrew Wilkie denouncing these bills, saying that we are in a pre-police state. And he went through saying that these laws represent a threat to the liberties of Australians, freedom of speech, can endanger the right to protest, deny protection to whistleblowers and limit access to international institutions. Now, we've also had in the last week New South Wales opposition leader Luke Foley denouncing a new McCarthyism and Cold War mentality, which he said is being cultivated by the news media, fed by ASIO leaks, intelligence leaks, in regard to allegations such as the one that he was speaking about, and that is of New South Wales Labor Member of Parliament Ernest Wong being so-called cultivated by Chinese agents, for which no evidence has been presented. And he simply said, if there's concerns, ASIO can brief me on these concerns, but they never have. And he said, I won't stand by where the loyalties of 500,000 Chinese Australians are questioned. There is a taint here.
And Elisa, I just want to compare that to, we've got British-born members of Parliament who love everything British, starting with Tony Abbott, who is so enamoured with all things English that he gave Prince Philip a knighthood at Her Majesty's request. That's natural for that kind of affinity to his homeland. We've got Jewish members of Parliament who like taking, even organising delegations over to Israel, right, and have an affinity to Israel. That's natural for them. Well, here's a Chinese member of Parliament that just because he's Chinese and he is friendly towards China, suddenly he's a foreign agent, right? This is, and the Chinese Australian community, which is the biggest ethnic community in Australia, is starting to feel sort of like the public is suspicious of them, and that's not fair, and people should really take that seriously.
And this is the way the Sydney Morning Herald described the allegations on 28th of June. Mr. Wong's case is one of the very few confirmed recent instances in which foreign intelligence agencies might have cultivated a serving Australian politician.
Luke Foley did the right thing by challenging ASIO here, because ASIO, which we say is itself an example of foreign interference because it doesn't represent our interests, it represents the Five Eyes, which is the way the US and UK control the Anglosphere through their intelligence agencies. ASIO is constantly leaking this rubbish into the community to be picked up like in the newspaper like this, right? And further an agenda.
Yeah. Now, Andrew Wilkie, after he made this speech about these new laws, he revealed under parliamentary privilege that the former spy, and this is the guy who revealed the ASIS bugging of the East Timorese ministers, Witness K, and his lawyer were being charged and might face up to 2 years in jail. But he called the government's bugging operation, which was the problem in the first place, not the whistleblower, illegal and unscrupulous. And look who's, ending up getting 2 years in jail potentially.
And I don't know if people are how aware they are of this case, but here's little East Timor that we took credit for liberating from Indonesia. Good old Australia, we went those terrible Indonesians and we liberated East Timor. And then when we liberated them, Alexander Downer sat down on one side of the table and he abused the East Timorese on the other side of the table, basically said, you're giving up your oil. Right? That was the whole agenda all along. Well, as part of the negotiations, the company that was going to benefit from that was Woodside. ASIS, which we think is there to protect us from the communist threat or whatever else, it's our MI6. ASIS actually went and bugged the cabinet of East Timor so that our side knew what they were saying and what their strategy was in the negotiation. So we had the upper hand. Who benefited from that? Woodside. When Downer quit politics, where did he go and work?
Yeah.
Woodside. Right, this is so corrupt, it's not funny. So here's a guy, an ASIS agent, who said, I know this happened, I have to say something. He didn't even become a whistleblower. He went through the proper procedures, had a lawyer helping him, and now Christian Porter last week signed off on a charge where those two now face 2 years jail for this. And I want to compare it to Julian Assange. Julian Assange, our government should be helping him, right? But no, we're happy for America to persecute him so he has to be in hiding there in the Ecuadorian embassy. What did he reveal? The truth. He revealed gross wrongdoing by our side, America, etc., in the Iraq War and things like that. What did Edward Snowden reveal? The truth. Our side, we boast about human rights and we attack other countries for human rights, yet these people have exposed enormous human rights abuses from our side. What damn hypocrites we are. And our system gets to put them in jail. This is fascism. This is a police state. That's what we live in, people.
And it's proceeding rather rapidly. In the UK, they've got a whole suite of new national security laws up for a vote now, which former MI5 agent Annie Michon denounced as a potentially dangerous blueprint for a techno-Stasi state. And Australia is hosting in August the Five Eyes Summit, which is the spying alliance with us, the UK, the US and New Zealand and Canada. So it's proceeding rapidly. We have to break it by getting the population mobilised, and the starting point really is to go in with Glass-Steagall. We can begin to clean up the mess there so we can economically survive in order to change these other things. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks Robert.
Thanks, Lisa.
See you next time.
Live streamed from Melbourne each week, this is MELfeed.video, a different sort of TV.
Okay, Sarah, I'm going to order some pathology tests to see how everything's going.
Half the Australian population had a pathology test last year. That's you or someone you love. 100 tests are performed every minute, delivering vital medical information. From the moment you are born, your healthcare depends on pathology tests. 70% of medical decisions rely on information from pathology tests. Pathology is the engine room of healthcare. One small sample can reveal millions of insights all about you. Pathologists are your doctor's doctor. 25,000 people work to provide doctors with the answers they need to treat you. Australian pathology is world class. We may never meet you, but we see each of you as part of our family. Every minute, 23 Australians find out more about their health.
Good news, Sarah. The results show that everything's okay.
Pathology provides peace of mind.
I rely on Australian pathology.
Sign up online to support Australian pathology.
So, you think you're ready for this?
To take on the world? Why not?
We've all seen this one time or another. We may even have done it ourselves. But inhaling balloon gas is very dangerous and can be fatal. The helium in balloon gas acts as an asphyxiant, and when you inhale, it displaces the oxygen in your lungs. Balloon gas is safe in balloons and when you release it in a well-ventilated area and in a safe manner. So the next time you see some sucker about to inhale balloon gas, or you think it's going to be a laugh, stop and be gas-wise.
They say there's a chance I could die in a car crash, maybe even from heart disease, maybe even skin cancer.
I could die in a work-related accident, or I could die in a fight.
The fact is, the biggest cause of death for men in my age group is suicide.
Please don't let this happen to me.
You can do something. Lifeline believes that suicide is mostly preventable. Help us save lives. Find out what you can do at lifeline.org.au.
MELfeed Video is about to close operations for tonight, but we'll be back with you next Wednesday evening. In the meantime, here is a selection of programs that will be seen on our next scheduled web stream. You are welcome to visit our website at MELfeed.video for further details of this project. Until next time, from all of us at MELfeed Video, we wish you a very good night.